Hey everyone, InDongCho here. Welcome to my audiobook. You know, they say you need money or talent to live your dream life. Well, 2 years ago, I decided to run a wild experiment to prove them wrong. I packed up my life, left my job, my home, everything familiar, and went country after country. No plan, no savings, no connections, just $1,000 and a one-way ticket. But here's the kicker. Something always happened. A twist, a miracle, a kindness, a doorway. My journey started in California, drifted through Bali, wandered the temples of Nepal, tumbled through Sri Lanka, and now here I am, recording this in Greece. I am 45, I have ADHD and a sprinkle of dyslexia, I'm a chronic starter, a master of unfinished projects, and my energy level is somewhere between house cat and sleepy grandma. Pretty much, I'm allergic to anything that smells like traditional success. And yet, I am living my dream life. Bird song and morning light are my alarm clocks. No schedule, no boss, no inbox waiting to devour me. I go to the beach like it's my part-time job. I share meals with locals who treat me like a long, lost cousin. Some nights I fall asleep under the night sky. And I get to live like this not because I work harder than everyone else, but because I learn to think, feel, and believe differently. This audiobook isn't a how-to. I am the opposite of a productivity guru. It's more like a whispered invitation. You can do it too. Really, even from rock bottom, especially from there. If you've ever thought there's gotta be more to life than just grinding, you are in the right place. I arrived in Greece with a few $100 donated by friends and a big, messy dream. Connect with locals, stay for 3 months, find a magical place to write, and let the story pour out of me like olive oil straight from heaven. But spoiler alert, it did not go as smoothly as I hoped. In this video, I'll share what happened when I first arrived in Greece and why I immediately had to get off the first island and went to a different one. And if time allows, I will share why I sent back the money friend had sent me to survive and chose to sleep on the beach like a homeless person, and how all of that somehow led me to 3 incredible Greek locals who changed everything. So let me take you back to where it all began. My original plan was this: get to Greece from Turkey by boat, simple, budget-friendly, adventurous. But I didn't quite think things through. I arrived on this tiny island called Kos, confident I would figure things out, but I had never entered a country by sea before. Only airports. And airports have bathrooms, SIM card shops, cafes, information desks. This port? It had wind and silence. That's it. No SIM card, no map, no idea what I was doing. But hey, I thought Google Maps has my back. Except, of course, Google Maps doesn't work without data, and data doesn't work without a SIM. And SIM card doesn't magically appear on teeny islands where no one accepts lost dreamers like me to show up. How do I find this SIM card? If I just keep walking, maybe I will stumble across one. I look to my right, too quiet. I look to left, a little busier and touristy. If I wore a SIM card, I'd be over there. So I began dragging my suitcase. Wheels rebelled against the uneven cobblestones like a child refusing to go to school. To my left, the Aegean shimmered in turquoise glory. Every sea has its own distinct color. But this was Greece blue, the kind of blue where turquoise fell in love with sapphire, stitched with threads of myth. melted into the ocean, and never left. The sea was calm, gentle waves were lapping against the dock. Air was shockingly clean, especially after spending 3 months in Sri Lanka, where vehicles coughed out black smoke. Locals zoomed by on bicycles, cars whizzed past. Families and couples strolled on the pedestrians' path. They had phones, plans, places to be. I didn't. Still, I never liked booking things in advance. You would think after years of landing in new countries, usually lost, I would start planning things better. But here's the thing. Planning for me feels like trying to schedule a kiss. It kills the magic. I stopped to ask a few people about SIM cards. No one knew. I picked into a hotel lobby. Maybe they would know something. I walked in. They were swamped. Phones ringing, guests checking in. I couldn't dare to approach. I needed Wi-Fi like a desert needs rain. Then I saw Wi-Fi written on the wall. Ooh, jackpot. I quickly connected, Google mapped the place without looking like a Wi-Fi thief. I told myself, act cool, pretend like I belong here. I took the screenshots of the directions, quietly exited the hotel, walked, and finally got my SIM card. Yay, a victory. Next mission, find a cheap place to stay. I opened my booking app with hope and a 30% charge to phone. And promptly, I felt my stomach dropped. The most affordable place was 60 euros a night. I would be broke and homeless in a week if I stayed on this island. So I checked other islands, and boom, I found a place in Rhodos for just 21 euros a night. I knew right then I had to get to Rhodos. I hauled my suitcase down to the ferry ticket office. My body was on the verge of collapse, dehydrated, restless, but my mind was louder. If you don't get off this island now, you're sleeping on a bench with your suitcase as a pillow. I reached the counter, sweat streaking down my back. Do you have a ferry to Rhodos? Yes, the lady said. Last one's in 40 minutes. Perfect. I tapped my credit card. Declined. Tried another one. Declined. My vision went a little blurry. My brain started spinning in spirals. This couldn't be happening. Not now. Then a flash of genius. I remembered. I have a few $100 sent by friends in my PayPal account. But I couldn't use PayPal here. What I needed was a human ATM. And right then, 3 travelers walked in, trying to buy the ferry tickets. I had to make this work before the ferry left. Excuse me, I blurted out, my voice louder than I meant. They turned. Sorry to bother you, but do you think I could PayPal you money in exchange for cash? They stared at me like I just asked to borrow their toothbrush. Awkward silence. One of them raised an eyebrow. I had to give them a reason that would raise a sense of urgency. If I don't get this ticket, I will have to sleep on the streets tonight. None of my cards are working. I've learned that most people genuinely want to help when someone's in trouble. One of them said yes. Man gave me his PayPal ID. He said he can give 100 euros. I wired him. One of the women looked at me skeptically. I could almost hear her thinking, she's a scammer. 100 euros went into the man's account. I showed him my phone screen to prove it. The woman told him to check his phone. He checked. However, the money hadn't come through on his end. I said, sometimes it takes a moment for the money to come through. The woman countered. That's weird. It always comes through right away. I was desperate. I can give you all my SNS account, a photo of my passport, and my phone number. And if the money doesn't come through by tonight or tomorrow, I promise I will make sure you get it. The man simply said, I trust you. He handed me 100 euros cash. I bought the ticket, put the rest of the cash in my pocket, and just like that, I was on my way to Rhodos. I went to wait for the ferry at the sitting area, but there were no signs, no attendants, and I had no idea if I was in the right spot. My mind started to race. I asked the people around if they were going to the same destination. They said yes, and I finally relaxed a bit. As I sat there, I noticed two homeless women with their blankets stretched out like picnic mats and belongings lined up by the wall, looking like gypsies, rooted and restless all at once. It suddenly hit me. If I ran out of money, that could be me. It felt less like someone else's problem and more like my own potential reality. I even thought they were wealthier than me. At least they have warm blankets. If I come to a point where I have to sleep on the street, would people allow me a spot or be territorial, kick me out of there? These thoughts crossed my mind, not seriously, but they were there. I had come to Greece to finish my book. I already had 80% of the story, but something told me Greece would give me the final 20%, the final chapter, the soul of the journey, the magic that would stitch the whole thing together and make it sing. Most people in my situation would be panicking. I need a job, I need a place to live, I need a plan. But honestly, only about 30% of me was concerned. But the other, calm, certain, rooted in something deeper. Because I'd learned to live in a state of faith. I know how powerful this is. So I reminded myself, I choose to believe. What I needed would appear. The right people, the right places, and the right experiences. It started raining. The ferry came. People moved toward it. I followed. The water from the wet ground quickly made into my shoes. Soon my socks were soaked. Every step was soggy and squishy. I only had 2 pairs of lightweight shoes. The rest I had thrown out somewhere between California and Turkey in a mad attempt to lighten my life. When you carry your entire existence in your suitcase, every sock, every charger, every bottle becomes a moral decision. Do I need this? Will this break my spine? I chose to save my back and throw them all out. I climbed into a seat, peeled off a wet socks like they were clingy axes, and pulled a fresh pair from my bag like a tiny treasure. I waited for the feet to dry and watched the window. The island behind me faded into a watercolor blur. All I could see now was the open sea. I put on fresh pair of socks. I lifted my knees and brought them to my chest and leaned against the cold pane, trying to nap. Not a real nap, just the twitchy, half-dreaming kind you get after 2 days of non-stop transportation. Bus from Istanbul, ferry from Bodrum, Turkey, and now this. My brain had stopped forming full thoughts. My soul was somewhere between exhausted and quietly euphoric. Somewhere on this ancient island, Greece would give me exactly what I came for. The loudspeaker crackled to life, something like, "We have arrived in Rhodos, passengers disembarking." People began to move. Sandals slapped the metal floors, zippers zipped, and travelers scatter like leaves in the wind, rushing toward rides, taxis, and familiar faces. I stood still in the midst of it all, small, quiet, like a confused potato dropped in the middle of a chessboard. I first needed to book a room. Most people book their room way in advance. I know. But I always book mine after I arrive. I am one of those unicorns that immigration officers dread. You should see their faces when I land in new country and they ask, "Where will you be staying?" And I go, I don't know, maybe by the beach or wherever the wind takes me. I met another rare bird like me in Greece. Her name is Maria. She actually was taken to the interrogation room. I haven't yet. Rain drizzled down, cool and steady. I spotted a small booth nearby and ducked underneath. The roof wasn't much, but it kept the rain off my screen just long enough to scroll through. Found a female dorm bed for 21 euros. Click, booked, done. Paid by PayPal. Thanks to my friends. The map said 17 minutes on foot. Could I walk with all of this? Backpack, suitcase, fatigue. A taxi idled nearby. Seductive. But I knew the fare would be about the same as the dorm bed I just booked. Nope, I needed that 21 euros to stretch. I needed that book to finish. So I walked. I strapped on my backpack, my suitcase in my right hand, phone in my left hand, following the map. The suitcase rattled on cobblestones, snagging and getting stuck. I lifted it again and again. Rhodos stretched before me, a medieval knight fortress wall unfolding endlessly. It might have sprung from Game of Thrones. Oh my gosh. Storybook arches, curling vines, the smell of melted cheese, and warm bread from cafes. Eventually, I reached a new town, modern shops, lively restaurants, more tourists. And something about it made me shrink a little. Everyone was with someone, family, lovers, friends, sharing meals and laughter, while I dragged my suitcase uphill alone. At last, I arrived at the hostel entrance. The ground floor was a cafe bar, buzzing with youthful energy, a Gen Z playground where I felt like an outsider. I worried the front desk might silently judge me. Too old for here. But I needed rest. I needed my money to stretch. Sliding open the glass door, I stepped in, heart pounding, and saw a young man with trendy hair and ear piercings behind the check-in counter, smiling, welcoming. "Hi, you book a room?" Yes, I nodded. He checked his screen, asked for my passport. I braced for judgment. However, none came. Instead, kindness, just genuine warmth, like I was a glowing 25-year-old TikTok star. He showed me the kitchen, the bathrooms, the lockers, sweet as honey. What a relief. Finally, I could rest. 2 ferries, a bus station night in Bodrum, Turkey, a long bus ride from Istanbul, all behind me. I placed my suitcase gently next to the bed, like it too had finally found a place to rest. Slipped my backpack into the cabinet, zip it shut with a quiet sigh. But sleep didn't come just yet. My curiosity had one last ember glowing. I wandered out into the bar area. It was karaoke night. A giant flat screen glowed above the bar, broadcasting lyrics. Young travelers sat comfortably on the couch, watching the screen, half reading, half shouting into microphones. Their voices cracked. off key, but full of heart. It wasn't about perfection, it was joy, raw and unpolished. I stood in the doorway, quietly humming along, just watching. My body started to sway, just a little, but enough to betray me. The beat was alive. I stood there among strangers and neon. I could feel something bubbling. I started thinking, what would I sing? Not a sad song. I didn't want to bring down the room with something that sounded like heartbreak in a minor key. Then it hit me. 아파트, that Bruno Mars and Rose from Blackpink sings together. I had been humming this song for weeks. I still stumble over tongue-twisted part where Bruno does his lyrical gymnastics, but I figured, what's a little public humiliation among strangers? Next thing I know, I've got a mic in my hand. The music dropped. People turned. And bam, I was in the spotlight. I tilted the mic up like a pop diva, face lifted to the heavens, channeling the Holy Spirit of funk. A couple girls drifted toward me. A guy with the beard did the spin. I pointed the mic to a girl next to me. She belted out like a line like a karaoke queen. Passed it to another. She sang too. We were strangers becoming a chorus, a momentary band, untrained and unafraid. When the song ended, applause, laughter, high fives. The bartender leaned over and grinned. Want a drink? I shook my head. Nah, I'm heading to the shower, I grinned. Gotta wash the whole continent off me. Last time I took a shower was in Istanbul. She smiled. Back in the room, I unpacked the essentials. Soap, toothbrush, those little exfoliating gloves that make you feel like you're scrubbing away a half inch of your dead cells. And I stepped into the world's tiniest shower. The shower curtain wrapped around my leg like a jealous ex in a ghost curtain form. But the hot water was glorious. I let it wash everything away. Dirt of 2 countries and travel grime swirled down the drain. I turned off the water and stepped out 2 kilograms lighter. I wrapped myself in the bleach-scented towel, clean clothes on, a big towel hung, sheets smelling bleach fresh. I sat on the bed, hair damp, a small towel still wrapped around my head. My bed was by the window, a prime spot, if you're lucky enough to snag it. One bunk was empty, holding only a tiny pile of someone's traveled chaos. The other held a girl, lying like a content cat, book in her hand, knees up, radiating an almost impossible comfort. She glanced over, offered a soft smile, and said, "Hi, I'm Yana." I smiled back. "Hi, I'm Hannah," I replied, awkwardly trying to tame my damp hair with the dry side of the towel. I probably looked like a startled llama. We quickly exchanged the usual "Where are you from?" She was from Czech Republic. I told her South Korea. "Oh, was it a long flight from Korea?" she asked, her voice calm and kind and pleasant like a late summer breeze. "Actually, I didn't fly here from Korea." I began, a small smile playing on my lips. "I came by ferry from Turkey." That surprised her, and naturally, it led to more. How I hadn't been home in nearly 2 years. My winding path through Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bali, California, the fact that I was on a kind of a mission. Her eyes, already kind, grew even more intrigued. So I laid it out for her. I am writing a book about how powerful our minds are, how we can all create the life we want, not because we have money or discipline or high intelligence, but because we dared to believe we can. Her eyes truly lit up then. I told her I'd been documenting my journey on Instagram and we follow each other instantly. She reciprocated, she reciprocated, sharing tales of her own journey, showing me photos from Alaska, a place I'd never even considered. But seeing the way she spoke, the sparkle in her eyes, hearing her calm, unhurried voice, the kind that makes you want to lean in and just listen, suddenly Alaska sounded like a place I wanted to go. I learned she was a professional interpreter back home, now solo traveling Greece for a few weeks. We talked for perhaps 40 minutes, perhaps more. Then a comfortable silence began to settle between us, like mist over a quiet lake. The moment to let her return to her book, the moment for me to finally stretch out, to truly exhale. We wished each other joyful travels. I lay down, staring at the ceiling, my thoughts turning quietly in the stillness. Where was the local I was meant to meet? How would our path truly cross? Sleep, soft as wind, began to drift in. Somewhere between waking and dreaming, I felt it, a quiet certainty. They would arrive when I least expect them, from where I least imagined. But before I let go entirely, I remember my nightly ritual. I closed my eyes, whispered into the dark, a silent chant. Thank you for this bed. Thank you for a roof over my head, for the safety of this night, for the friends who sent support, for the beauty I saw today. And I thank myself for trusting this journey, trusting myself. Deep breaths, sleep came like a gentle tide, and I let myself float. If you want to find out what happened next, make sure you subscribe to my channel right now. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter of my crazy adventure. Trust me, you will not want to miss what happens next.